What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Today, this is a Game Week 22 transfer targets watch list video going into the double game week, which starts in just under a week's time. We spoke earlier in the week in my first transfer plans of what I was considering doing with my team. Now, since then, we've heard that Heung-min Son is going to be unavailable for Game Week 22, but this will be a more broader video talking about some of the players that I think you should target, whether they're good for just Game Week 22 or whether you should be looking to buy them for a longer period of time and looking at their fixtures, not just in Game Week 22, but for a few weeks after them as well. So this is my team up on screen, but as I said, it's a more general video to hopefully help you pick some players to target for the upcoming game weeks. You can see that I do have Son, so I will need to sell him, I think, going into Game Week 22, because he is likely to be out for probably 22, 23, and maybe even 24 and 25, depending on how long-term the injury is. We haven't had it quite confirmed, but it does look like he'll be out for a minimum of 2 game weeks. So let's dive straight in and look at that first transfer target. The first one we've got is JamesMadison of Leicester. We will be doing this in club order. So 6.9 million as a midfielder. You can see at the bottom his fixtures for the next 5 game weeks. A double game week of Burnley and Tottenham in Game Week 22, followed by Brighton at home. However, after that, it does get a little bit more difficult with Liverpool, West Ham and Wolves in the 3 games after. The things I really like about JamesMadison is they have a very nice double game week. He's on good form recently as well. Scored a lot of goals and scored again in the FA Cup. Issue is, after the double game week, they do have a difficult run of fixtures. So if you are buying into Madison, you won't really want to have him in your team or be confident that he'll be scoring points for the upcoming run of fixtures. Leicester also have COVID issues. They had their game in Game Week 21 just cancelled against Everton. Apologies, and I feel very bad for anyone who brought in the likes of Calvert-Lewin or Gray for a double game week in Game Week 21, even though their match has now been cancelled and they ended up with just a single game week. However, I do really like Madison. He's probably the Leicester midfielder that I like the most. We'll maybe talk about another one in just a moment, but 6.9 million given their run of fixtures. Yes, it's a difficult run after the double, but I do still think they're capable of scoring points in probably 3 of the 4 games after that. Liverpool away is definitely difficult, but Madison has been on such good form that I am definitely thinking of him as my Heung-min Son replacement. Next up in Leicester's midfield is Lookman. So 6 million for him. A bit cheaper than Madison. Seems to be playing up front at the moment while their strikers are out. Vardy seems to be out for up to 8 weeks. Daka could be back though, which is worth bearing in mind. Again, the fixture talk stays as we did with Madison. Nice double in Game Week 22 against Burnley and then Tottenham at home. Brighton in Game Week 23 after is nice, but then from then on it does get more difficult. Nice double, good form recently, scored 2 goals in the past 2, as well as picking up 3 FPL assists in the FA Cup playing up front, linking very well with those wingers as well as Madison playing in that central attacking midfield. The concern for me is that he may not play up front for every game. It looks like Daka could be back as soon as Game Week 22. If not the first game, he's likely to be available for the second game, which means we may get 1 game up front and the second game he may be going back on the wing. Now, he's not a bad option if he's playing on the wing. He's still a very cheap and affordable price, but it's not quite the same as Lookman playing up front, linking in with Madison if he's compared when he plays out on the right hand side. Of course, there are the COVID issues, so we do need to bear in mind about whether Leicester's game against Burnley is going to go ahead, because they have had their game against Everton cancelled. I do think at 6 million though, like Madison, he is slightly easier to fit on your bench in the upcoming week for those difficult fixtures, whereas Madison at almost 7 million, you're going to be wanting to play him or he's not really worth the investment. However, Lookman could sit on your bench for the likes of Liverpool, West Ham and Wolves in the game weeks after, whereas Madison, as I say, you'd probably want to start. So a bit of a cheaper option, but definitely one that I'm considering as a bit more of a differential going into Game Week 22. Next up, and we'll move teams now, we'll go on to Tottenham. We have Lucas Moura, 6.5 million midfielder. Moura has definitely been a good performer for Tottenham. He seems to be occupying that 3rd forward spot alongside Kane and Son. However, with Son now injured, it seems that Moura has to play every single sort of important game for them. And if we look at their upcoming fixtures, there are definitely some important matches in there for them. Arsenal and Leicester in the double game week are so big. They need to pick up points in at least one of these. They need at least 1 win and a draw from this, if not 2 wins, to sort of cement their place in sort of the running for the top 4 in their Premier League. 6.5 million as well. He's been on good form. He is quite patchy when he plays, doesn't always return, but I think is a good differential option now that Son is away. He'll have to be the one that is linking up well with Harry Kane up front. Cheap option as well without Son there. Good form recently, a bit patchy at times, but the issue without Son, Spurs are not going to be the same force going forward as they have been, and they do have difficult fixtures. The double is not particularly nice, and then they go away to Chelsea in the week after, so you probably don't want to play him in that fixture. So it is what he can do in the double game week. After Chelsea, they do play Southampton and Wolves, so he is worth picking up. Again, if you don't want to play him against Chelsea and you have a strong bench, which we all seem to do because of the COVID situation that there is, we've upgraded our benches to make sure we have a full playing 15. You could bench him in that Chelsea game and then play him for Southampton and Wolves at home when Tottenham could still be without Son. So I do like Moura, a good cheap option, and definitely another one that I'm considering for game week 22. The next Tottenham option that we're going to talk about, of course, is Harry Kane, 12.2 million striker. So he's returning to a little bit of form. He scored again in the FA Cup, having scored in the past couple of games as well. He loves to score against Arsenal, who they do play in the double game week, and Leicester have been very poor from a defensive point of view. And I do think there's a great chance that Kane and Tottenham can put a few goals past Leicester despite their attacking form. The only issue, of course, it's quite difficult to get Kane in, especially when we're looking at the likes of Ronaldo. We have difficult fixtures in the double compared to Ronaldo and afterwards in game week 23 as well. And without Son, we're not quite sure exactly how they're going to fare with Son being out of the team. Yes, they can bring in the likes of Dele Alli. Yes, they can bring in Moura, but it's not the same as having Son in their team, right? How is Kane going to be able to link up with them? It is a bit of a risk, but I do think for game week 22 in isolation, he is a really nice option. The only issue is Salah will be back soon. There's the likes of Ronaldo, we're wanting to own him. It is difficult to fit him in long term. He's probably not one of my key transfer targets, just given the long term view of my squad, because they do play Chelsea and Manchester City away in the few game weeks afterwards. But if you have a route to him and you don't have Ronaldo in your team at the moment, he could be a very, very nice differential indeed, because a lot of managers are not focusing on Harry Kane this week. And the final Tottenham option we're going to look at is Reguilon, but in general, the Tottenham defence. They've been very good in recent weeks, particularly from a defensive point of view, keeping, I think, 6 clean sheets in the 9 Premier League games under Antonio Conte. The only issue is they do have difficult fixtures. How many clean sheets do we expect them to keep in the double game week? And probably a maximum of 1 with Arsenal at home and Leicester away. They have difficult fixtures afterwards, as we have mentioned. Now, if we focus on the different defensive options, I've gone with Reguilon here. He is the most attacking fullback. You could go for Emerson Royale, but he's not been that great from an FPL point of view recently. So that's why I've gone with Reguilon on the other hand side. However, Sessegnon seems to be back fit and available for Tottenham, which means he is a slight rotation risk that he could start a game with Reguilon getting a rest, because it sounds like he has an ongoing back problem and a back injury that has kept him out of the FA Cup. You could go Davies, Dyer in the defence at centre-back. You could go Davison Sanchez or Romero. It's a bit unclear about which 3 of those 4 are going to keep their place in the Tottenham defence. So I have gone with Reguilon at 5.4 million. Reguilon, Kane and Lucas Moura are definitely the 3 that I would look to target. If you do have a goalkeeper spot, Lloris is very nice as well, but I don't think many of you are making a goalkeeper transfer going into the double game week. So that is Tottenham, and now let's move on and have a look at Watford. So we start with Dennis. Well, Dennis is the one that I've picked out, 6.1 million for their main man. Good double game week, the best double game week fixtures that there are against Newcastle and Burnley, and then Norwich at home in the game week after that. Now, after that, it does continue to be fairly nice. West Ham, Brighton and Aston Villa in the 3 game weeks after Norwich. So definitely worth considering Dennis. He is the cheapest sort of very good forward that we could own. A lot of the other forwards that we're considering are more expensive. They have a nice double game week. Good form recently as well. I think he's the 2nd highest scoring forward now behind Jamie Vardy in terms of goals, and may even be the highest scoring in terms of actual FPL points. Good fixtures after, as we've spoken about. The only issue is he was taken off at half time against Tottenham in game week 21 and then was absent in the FA Cup squad, which leaves a little bit of doubt about exactly what's going on. It sounds like he's going to be available. However, there could be a little bit of a fallout about him not going to the African Cup of Nations. While he was taking off at half time, it sounds like he had a bit of a knock. Now, we've been told that he should be back available for game week 22, the double game week. If he's not, you can obviously go for Josh King. I would only be looking at Watford from an attacking point of view, but Dennis is definitely the one that I would pick if they are both available. Next up, we have Cucurella of Brighton in their defence. 5.1 million, so slightly more pricey than some of the other defensive options you could get. If you don't have the money for him, you could go down to the likes of Veltman, or Lamptey, although Lamptey doesn't seem to be playing every game, and with a double game week there's a bit of a doubt in my mind. So that's why I've gone Cucurella. Playing left wing back, loves to get far forward up the pitch, puts a lot of balls into the box, crosses, as well as taking the occasional shot as well. So he is worth considering if you do have a bit of money to spend. They have a nice double game week, Crystal Palace at home and then Chelsea at home. The Chelsea one, of course, is more difficult, but Crystal Palace have been mixed in front of goal recently. After that, they have a okay run of fixtures, Leicester in game week 23, then a blank game week, but then they play Watford away, Burnley at home. So for the sort of next 5, I do quite like what the option of a Brighton defender could do for us. He has good attacking threat and nice double game week. They've not been that great from a defensive point of view recently. I think only 1 clean sheet in their past 5 matches. And it's a mixed double game week. Crystal Palace, they need a clean sheet there or it isn't worth bringing one in. He's a nice differential. You could go cheaper and just play the Brighton defender for this week, then bench them. 5.1 million, maybe too much to spend, but it is definitely worth considering given how they did defend at the start of the season, given what he can do from an attacking point of view, and then their fixtures from the likes of game week 25 onwards. Now, on from Brighton, we could talk about Trossard, but we haven't gone from their attack just because it's so hard to predict who's going to start every game and where the attacking points are going to come from. So we move on to talk about another team which is equally as impossible to predict, which is Manchester United, and we talk about their midfield first. Now, of course, if you want to go for Cristiano Ronaldo, I think he's a great option. He's probably going to be my captain for game week 22, the double game week. They do play Aston Villa and Brentford away. I do expect a bounce back, and I do expect Cristiano Ronaldo to be heavily involved. If we could find a midfielder that was going to go on a nice run of form for Manchester United, it would be great. The likes of Rashford, Greenwood, Sancho, Bruno Fernandes, even Fred at a cheap budget option. But the issue is none of them are starting every single game and they cost a lot of money. If you wanted to take a gamble, I'd probably go Sancho or Bruno Fernandes, although Rashford could play up front, but Cavani's been playing recently, so we don't necessarily know if that's going to be the case. They have the nicest run of fixtures. Aston Villa and Brentford in the double, then West Ham, Burnley, Southampton, Leeds. And we may want to sell Ronaldo to go and get Salah back when he comes. So having another United option could be a great pick in theory. However, there is no one in form and they are very expensive at the risk of minutes. So if they were sort of 6-7 million, you could take the gamble, and if they don't return, fine. The issue is with them being sort of 9, 10, even 11 million for Fernandes, it's such a risk to take, and if it doesn't pay off, that's such a large amount of money that you have stashed up. I personally am going to stay clear. If I was on a free hit, I may gamble on either Bruno Fernandes or Sancho. I think Cavani will play one of the two, which is then not good for Greenwood and it's not good for Rashford. I'd probably gamble on Sancho because he's slightly cheaper, but I can understand why people are maybe very hesitant to go for them. But I did think it's worth considering them because they could be nice differentials for this run if only we could find the one that's going to get consistent minutes over this run of fixtures. Now, on top of Manchester United's midfield, another minefield that we can talk about is their defence. So a lot of us looking at the likes of De Gea in goal, and he stands out as the best option. The fullbacks are so difficult to predict with Shaw and Tellers competing, and then Dalot and Wan-Bissaka. Again, it looks like we don't know which of them's going to play each and every game. It isn't a sort of one plays one, then the next, and it goes back and forth. Some of them are getting a run of games and then it changes, so it's very difficult to want to invest. If you have one of them in your team at the moment, I would keep it. If you're a Dalot owner, if you're a Tellers, Wan-Bissaka, if you're a Shaw owner, I would keep them and hope they play one game in the double game week, or even 2 if something happens, an injury to their competitor. But if I was buying into the defence, I'd probably go to De Gea first, and then I'd look at Varane in the centre-back position. Maguire will probably come back in and play both games. I can't really see him being dropped. You could go there. Is it really worth investing in? Yes, their fixtures are very nice. They've not been that great from a defensive point of view, but I'd probably want to invest in a centre-back, and they don't score many goals. So I probably wouldn't go buying a Manchester United defender. I'd look at De Gea. You could go for the centre-backs, but the attacking threat isn't that great. So instead of going for, a 5.5 Varane or Maguire, you could go for Cucurella, for example, who does have an equally nice run of fixtures in the long term, as well as having good clean sheet potential. They're worth considering. If you own them, hold them, but I probably wouldn't be investing in their defence. And finally, we're going to talk about the Game Week 22 captaincy options. For me, there are 4 good captaincy options and captains you probably own at least one of for Game Week 22. Now, I've put them up on screen in no order and I'll reveal the order in just a moment. Ronaldo, Dennis, Kane and Madison all have a double game week. I would be captaining a double game week player. Now, I don't think any of them are good enough to put our triple captains on. I don't trust any of these enough. And it looks like Liverpool will have a double game week when Salah is back, where I will be using my triple captain. But captaincy captaincy nonetheless. Ronaldo, 2 away games against Aston Villa and Brentford. They've not been great, but Ronaldo is capable of getting hauls against everyone. Dennis has been probably the most consistent returner and has a great double game week against Burnley and Newcastle. Kane, difficult fixtures, but slowly playing himself back into form, but no Son, Arsenal and Leicester. And then Madison, he seems to be playing so well. Leicester seems sort of revolving around him. Burnley away, Tottenham at home is definitely a good double game week for them. So if I had to rank these, I would do it as forwards. Now it is actually in order. I didn't do this on purpose, but my number one captaincy option is Ronaldo, very closely followed by Dennis, then Kane, and then Madison. And this is who I would be captaining in game week 22. Ronaldo is set to be my captain. If Dennis comes in, it will open up a bit of a debate, but I'm pretty sure it will be Ronaldo now that there is no Son available for game week 22. So I hope you found this useful. Both some players to think about ahead of the double game week and whether you should be owning them just for the short term or whether we can keep buying them for the long term and what's going to benefit your squad for the foreseeable future, as well as the captaincy standout options. If you have enjoyed the video, please do consider liking and subscribing. We're getting so close to 15,000 subscribers and I would really appreciate all the support that you can give me on this video as well. If you have enjoyed, like and subscribe. Drop any of your questions in the comment section down below. There will be more videos and live streams between now and the deadline and every game week, so turn on those notifications as well. But thank you all for watching and I'll be back again very soon.